Why the hell is abortion a political topic?
Politicians make laws. There are laws in relation to abortion around the world. Some politicians and parties support it, some don't. People have voted on this issue. So of course it is political. Any divisive issue can be.
Because everything is political in a sense. Who you are, who you fuck, what you eat. They all have ramifications. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but God, it does get exhausting.
Isn't everything technically politics? Unless you have a specific definition for politics.
I'm pro-choice, but let me speak as devil's advocate for a moment. Imagine that you believe that the embryo, the fetus, is a life. Once the sperm meets the egg, that is life. Now imagine that you are witnessing people just end those lives. To you, that is murder. To you, those growing cells had the entire potential of a full life. To you, everything deserves a chance. To you, these people are killing innocent children. Now imagine that you feel so heartbroken and strong, that you want to do everything in your power to protect those infant lives, and that you want to push laws to save those lives because you're incredulous that the people around you don't see it as murder, which it clearly is to you.
Like I said, I'm pro-choice. But it is not at all hard to figure out why it's a political issue, nor is it hard to see where they're coming from. It's one of those issues that they're not going to be swayed on. Edit, I am pro-choice. You don't have to unpreach at me about it. Op wanted to know why it was a political issue. I explained why it is a political issue because it involves wanting to pass laws and wanting to vote in lawmakers that match their thinking. Me explaining their stance doesn't mean that I'm on that side.
Some people think abortion is murder, some don't. Then people want it banned or not.
Because that is how we make laws in the US, via politics. I'd highly recommend listening to the Behind the Bastards episodes on Phyllis Schlafly. They discuss how abortion became a political issue in the US a good bit. The short of it is that the right realized sometime in the 60s 70s that they could convince Christians that abortion was a problem and get a huge voting bloc by being against abortion. It wasn't an issue before then, so they made it one, and it's worked pretty damn well for them since.
The question who/what is recognized as a free and individual human and thusly deserves full protection under law is about the most central political question there is that underlies every major civil strife there was, including women's suffrage, the abolition of slavery, the Holocaust, colonialism, the abolition of estate limits to voting etc. I'm pro-choice but acting like what is a human? Isn't an important question to ask is intellectually dishonest and lazy.
Because it's such a gray area ethical topic. I personally have flipped-flopped from pro-life to pro-choice in my life. But I think I still understand where both sides are coming from. To one side, aborting a fetus feels like murder. To the other, forcing a woman to grow a fetus within her against her will is a violation of her sovereignty. I personally side with the latter, meaning I'm begrudgingly okay with abortion up until the point of viability, as to not violate the woman's sovereignty over her body. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's some clear-cut issue though. It has probably been the most complicated issue for me to work my beliefs out on. It's healthcare and goes into topics about protecting rights, programs for the poor, sex education, maternity leave, discrimination against women and mothers, etc. Some pro-choice, pro-life people see it as infanticide, the murder of a baby. So naturally they would want the government to ban it.
Because it's a thing for which different people want different laws passed and enforced by the government.
Because it polarizes people, it's an excellent tool to mobilize your supporters against them. Disclaimer. This is what I've read several times but, as always, this info could be wrong. But I don't have time to debate each person who comments. So y'all are on your own. For the most part in the US, abortion became political in the late 70s when the Republican Party joined with conservative Christians to fight it. Back in the 60s, Democrats had Dixiecrats. Southerners who ran as Dems but were very conservative. They were an echo from when Dems were the KKK's fav party in the 19th century or thereabouts. Dems were also beating reps for the most part. The GOP needed a way to either divide the Dems or increase their numbers. And becoming pro-life did both. Before this, most Christians ignored abortion and some Protestant groups even supported it. Catholics were always against it. So when the GOP declared itself staunchly pro-life, they got the Catholic vote, which is huge. To keep it, reps needed to make abortion political and stand with conservative Christians on that issue. That's also when evangelicals, mostly conservative televangelists but many others, began teaching that abortion is not just morally wrong but literally murder. Again, some Christians always believe this, but those were definitely not mainstream at all. Why did some go from ignoring, supporting abortion to being rabidly against it? Because enough religious leaders realized the benefits of partnering with a political party. So they began pushing a political abortion stance from their pulpits. And with evangelicals, almost anything said by their pastor counts as truth. That plan worked so well that abortion became the political litmus test for Republicans. If you're pro-choice, you're not just unworthy of being elected but unworthy of sympathy, love, or compassion. Why the fuck would anyone have sympathy for a baby murderer? That's why it's almost impossible to find a pro-choice Republican. Both the party itself and conservative voters won't stand for that. Once you frame abortion as murdering babies, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. That's also a big reason why Dems became so pro-choice. Dems in the past few decades have spent a lot of time reacting to conservative politics rather than trailblazing their own path. So if the reps are against abortion, Dems must be for choice. TLDR. Conservative Christians made an unofficial alliance with Republicans. If reps fought against abortion, Christians would vote Republican every time. And if Christians voted Republican every time, Republicans will control the government and make abortion illegal. That made abortion a political topic. Good question. For many, it becomes a moral argument about life versus death and should the state condone an activity that has been historically a taboo because it's perceived as infanticide, given that killing a pregnant woman counts as 2 counts of murder. This creates a legal and arguably moral conundrum. If the state punishes someone for murder in the death of a preterm infant, should it or should it not charge the woman for the same offense? Abortion advocates sidestep the issue by making an argument about when life begins and therein. Things get messy because pro-life advocates advocate that life begins at conception. When you get into discussions about third trimester abortion, see Kermit Gosnell, it gets even grimmer and grotesque as hardcore abortion activists advocate 40 weeks of abortion. Basically up and until the infant is born and takes its first breath. Historically speaking, abortion wasn't as political as it is today. I believe in the 1970s Republicans were losing, so they decided to try to get evangelicals etc. to vote for them, and they started using abortion as a political talking point. Imagine if other healthcare was decided by the government. So you smoked all your life and got lung cancer? You should have been more responsible. No chemo for you. Or I'm the governor of this state and also a Jehovah's Witness. Well, we don't believe in blood transfusion, so nobody in my state can either. Sorry about that car accident. Guess you're going to just bleed out. Bye. It is beyond stupid. The conflict become whether or not the baby inside the mother's womb have human right. Democrats basically say no because it's not fully developed yet, and it's in the end of the day it should mother's choice. Republicans' argument is that even if it's undeveloped, it's still developing, and who are we to stop the baby development? Who are we to say that this person should live or die? Yes, there's holes in both of these beliefs. I don't have any personal view, but this is what I learned in my government class. IDK, the full name, in which we try to understand both sides of the situation in order for students to have a better grasp of political issue or issue in general that can be affected politically. That's including laws and right we have, that there are constant misconceptions about in gray area like, and a touchy topic, stop and frisk, when it's considered defending yourself versus you attacking someone else, etc. And of course, like any political subject, there's holes in their logic. Sometimes there's feeling involved, etc. It's a whole mess when you get into it. Because there isn't actually a separation of church and state in America. Edit. From Wikipedia's page on the history of the anti-abortion movement in the U.S. Roe v. Wade was considered a major setback by anti-abortion campaigners. The case and the overturning of most anti-abortion laws spurred the growth of a largely religious-based anti-abortion political and social movement, even as Americans were becoming, in the 1970s and 1980s, increasingly pro-choice. That movement dominates the conversation today, and because it's fueled by institutions with tons of money and power, Christians, Catholics, the GOP, etc., it will continue to be a hot topic in modern politics. And many pro-lifers are single-issue voters, and will vote and donate Republican because the GOP has crowned themselves protectors of the fetuses. Until you're born, and then you're on your own. It's just a dummy issue to keep us fighting and thinking we have a say. Meanwhile, the real decisions that affect us are made behind closed doors and we know nothing about them or their effects until it's too late. Because it's something that only directly affects a specific population, and abortion directly contradicts the stigma of what that population is supposed to do. The second we figure out how to transfer a fetus to the very men who are anti-choice, abortion clinics will pop up like Starbucks.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.